probably going to fall into decline even faster. So right now there are 200, you can see 264 of the poor are vacant. When we add the 264 to the 427, we get the number that we believe we need to start tackling right now for acquisition and demolition. There is not a market for these types of homes. They bring down the value of the neighborhood in significant ways, and the cost to the city is beyond what you can bear. And I'll talk a little bit about this. This is the first time that we actually have had local dollars assigned to local general fund dollars, what it actually costs the city to address these blighted properties. And that's why I thought it was important to have Steve and Mike here as well. So we have up here in this box, minimum staff cost for code enforcement. This is a very, very conservative number. I know Liz sits on the Blight Review Board, and she knows how many times these properties have to be cited, have to go in front of the district justice, hold on, I think someone's called in. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to figure all this out, Frank. Oh, hold on, there's participants. I'm not sure what that was. Okay, anyway. This is a very conservative number. This assumes that they've only seen a code enforcement officer once, which we know that's not true, and Mike can attest to that, and then eventually gets in front of Mike Lavery to start the blight process. $2,275 per property at minimum to get it in front of the Blight Review Board. That is a cost that the city will never see again. You're paying for this code enforcement that you will never recover in your general fund. There's no fine, there's no fee, there's no recovering of that lot if it's ever sold again back into the general fund. The best way that you can see a return on that enforcement action is to remove the property and hopefully get it back into productive reuse. It has to go into the blight process. Once it goes in front of Race, who is Aaron Snippert, so we have two Aarons, so bear with me. So Aaron, he will work to acquire the property and then use funds that he's able to. Right now, those are county land bank funds to remove and demolish the property. All of those are taxpayer funds. These are all public dollars that are being used. So that's not.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
With this 427, how many of these are owner-occupied homes, or how many of them are rentals that are income properties?
We have that number, so there are a number that are registered rentals.
There's no way we can go after those landlords?
Yes, there is.
Are you doing it?
Yes, we are.
I wanna jump ahead.
So there's a number of policy issues that can come out of this data. And I was talking to Liz a little bit early. I didn't want to necessarily go down that rabbit hole, but I can assure you, I use this data to work with code enforcement on policy gaps, if you will. And so, both. So you start adding these numbers up. This is at 691 properties, over $2,200 a pop, almost 20,000 once it gets into the redevelopment authority. It starts adding up. And so we move to the effect of home values, and Liz asked these questions when she sat on BPRC. What are we losing in taxes? Because these properties are not paying taxes. They're typically tax delinquent. They're typically in arrears on water and sewer as well. So there is an estimated of 40% that are tax delinquent. That's a total of $227,000, over $227,000 per year. It devalues the homes on the block. We were able to assess that one block radius of an unsound property has an average assessment of $41,800. In a healthy block where there is not an unsound property, that average goes up to $71,000. So that is a loss of property taxes. So we're losing revenue of over $4.3 million. Yes, Mike.
Can I have a question? So would that be also in the qualified census tract, or would that be at the city at large? Because outside of the quality census tracts, where there are no unsound houses, the houses are more valuable. And I'm not sure that that statistic would be one that's viable.
We can break it down by census tract. This is the city at large, and there are unsound properties outside qualified census tracts.
I know, but not the number of, you know what I mean? Where
No, but they
there's a
do.
radius.
Aaron, she did look at that. Do you recall the number in Frontier?
Yeah, so the difference between, there's one unsound property in Frontier, and in that radius, it's a $50,000 difference between the properties that are in that one radius in Frontier and the rest of the properties in the neighborhood.
So
So you still see the difference, and it's larger in the, the neighborhoods that are outside of the qualified. The difference is larger.
thank you. For those who are on the call, the difference in a healthy neighborhood like Frontier, the difference with the same radius for an unsound versus a radius a block does not have an unsound building is $50,000. So the average does help, but you're right. We could do a qualified census tract. This number would be a little bit less. It's still a big number. So the total that is either the city is paying for of just the dilapidated blighted properties is the bottom line impact is $5.3 million a year. It's a big number, and it's a conservative number. So the more that we could look at code enforcement and the actual costs, that $371,955 would actually increase. The city's land bank, when you're addressing blight, the city, all of the funding to address blighted properties, none of it is coming from the city. It is all coming from the county land bank. You do not provide $1 except for emergency demolition towards addressing blighted properties. I'm just saying this is the reality. If it wasn't for the county land bank at a tune of a couple $100,000 a year, you would not be addressing blight at all, except for code enforcement. And so this number would increase and continue to grow. This is your opportunity to actually put some funding into blight remediation that is so desperately needed. What was interesting is that we did the analysis based on what is currently being used to address blight, which again is only coming from the city land bank via the county land bank allocation. It would take us an estimated 28 years to deal with the 691 properties we know exist today. The funding that's being allocated in the housing plan just on blight reduces that by 3 years. We still have 25 years of funding. So that's why it's important to also look at how do we repair the housing stock that we have that's salvageable, so it's not getting into a state of blight, which costs you so much more money, cost us as a taxpaying body so much more money to address. So these are eye-opening areas that I think we need to keep mindful of. This information, the people who work on the ground on this, on housing initiatives, Redevelopment Authority, the Land Bank, code enforcement that's out there, the neighborhood groups that are out there. This is not new information. This is not new, although they've probably never seen it in one spot before, but that's why it's so compelling. And a lot of these areas too, in our qualified census tracts, do not have a neighborhood group that has the capacity to get lots of dollars to help. So this is our opportunity to do that. And then finally, just to go over this a little bit more, we also use this data to look at the average numbers. So the average, I'm sorry, I've got to flip back. We have over 7,600 average properties showing minor signs of decline. These are usually homes that if they had more means, they would be able to repair their properties. They are getting cited by the officers, or at least notified, which means that it hasn't gone to citation. And when given the ability and the means, they're able to repair the property and put it back into a state of good condition and a livable state. We did a quick assessment of these properties that are in the average condition. They have, you can see that the assessed value really does decline from excellent condition all the way down to unsound. We're at about $43,970 is the assessed value. The difference between taking them from average to good is about just over $20,000. And that's a very rough number, right? It can really vary greatly, but we used the best information that we could. We estimate that it's close to $30,000 that would actually get them to that state, mainly because the cost of construction and rehab in the city, you don't get 100% of that back in the value of your property. Well, I wish we did. I don't think that exists. So we wanted to sort of start talking about what this type of investment on housing rehab is necessary. These are still big numbers. Some of it can be taken care of in the open market with traditional financing, people's savings if they feel that there's confidence put back in the market and they want to invest back in their properties. Some can be done with CDBG funding, which RACE uses almost all of their allocation for that kind of funding. So there's lots of different ways. What's in the housing program plan for you is also looking at the gaps between what CDBG doesn't fund, so the people who are not qualified because of income, but don't quite qualify for traditional financing. So it's gap financing in many ways for housing rehab that would help improve these 7,600 properties to get them in a state of good repair. So I know it's a lot of information, but I think one of my main takeaways for you is the plan that's before you is based on lots of data, lots of research, and lots of working in this field. We see this is not the silver bullet that's going to stabilize the neighborhoods completely. We're going to have to use this funding to leverage lots more dollars, as you can see. We need to take that 28 years. We might be able to get it to 25. I'd love to get it to 15 years and see where we are from there. But we've got to do something, and this is the opportunity for us to actually start addressing housing needs in the city in a significant way. The reason it is proposed to be housed in the city's redevelopment authority is because we saw that putting it in a one-stop shop made all the sense in the world, and they work throughout the entire city. So areas that don't necessarily have a neighborhood group or a neighborhood group that has the capacity to run a housing program, because not all of them do, the redevelopment authority works in that capacity now, and they can easily ramp up to work in that capacity for other areas with other programs. So this is the Blight Report. So I want to turn it over to Aaron, who's going to go over the housing plan with you, if that's okay. Unless you have any specific questions about the Blight Report. It's a lot of data, and I appreciate your patience as we walk through that.
Questions? No, we're good? All right. Thank you. Kathy, that was a great report. I just wanted to start off with giving you guys a brief history on the Redevelopment Authority, if you weren't aware. The Redevelopment Authority of the City of Erie was incorporated in 1955. All right, so for the last six years, the Redevelopment Authority has been an important contributor to the revitalization of Erie. So between that time and now, such projects as the Downtown Urban Renewal Project in 1965, the St. Vincent Hospital Urban Renewal Plan in 1969, the French to Holland Street Project, the Home Management Program in 1972, the Neighborhood Development Program of 1972, Center City Revitalization in 1972 to 1980, the Bayfront Urban Development Grant, and other such programs have all been spearheaded out of the Redevelopment Authority office. Currently, and so for a snapshot of the last 10 years as far as what the housing, or what the Redevelopment Authority has done. The Redevelopment Authority, if you're not aware, we have two major focuses: housing rehabilitation services and blight mitigation. In the last 10 years, the Redevelopment Authority has administered and infused into the neighborhoods over $14 million between HUD grants and leverage dollars within neighborhood and private investment. That doesn't include over $2 million in home funds that the authority administered between 2004 until 2018. Currently, the Redevelopment Authority has a lead hazard control grant for $3 million. We have CDBG funding from the city of Erie in the amount of $200,000 and $75,000 additionally to match toward our lead grant. We also have a Keystone Communities grant for $50,000 for facade over in the Serve Erie Bayfront area. We were also awarded a $150,000 grant toward blight mitigation within the city of Erie. The Redevelopment Authority also, like I said, provides housing services. We provide housing services under contractual agreement to the county. We work in McCain, Girard, Northeast, Albion, and we administer roughly $1 million in housing rehab for the county as well. The Redevelopment Authority has 3 licensed risk assessors and supervisors. We are licensed to operate 2 XRF instruments to test for lead abatement or lead within houses in the city of Erie. We are the only XRF instruments in Erie County. We're the only licensed risk assessors in Erie County. And then just to touch on the Erie Land Bank, the Erie Land Bank roughly has an operating budget of around $400,000 a year to acquire and demolish blighted structures within the city of Erie in cooperation with the Erie County Land Bank, as Kathy said. So just a brief history as far as the Redevelopment Authority goes and what we do.
Just a quick question on that.
Yes, sir.
There's a house up in Glenwood. There's a sign out there that says Erie County Land Bank. You call it 7 times, you don't get a human, you don't get a call back. Why?
I would say the Erie County Land Bank is only staffed by 1 person, and she is extremely overwhelmed with the amount of work that she has, and she's currently in a situation of looking to hire somebody to assist her. So she is basically a one-person operation who is tasked with administering the entire Erie County Land Bank operations outside the city of Erie. So she handles everything from Corey to West Springfield.
Once again, I ask, not for me, but for the folks who've asked me that question. Why should I call this place if they don't call me back?
Right, no.
Isn't that
That's the-
property in the city?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
that should be covered by the county.
The property you're speaking of is on
Gore
and it
Church.
is in Mill Creek. It is just outside the city of
Just
Erie
around
limits.
those.
That's why it's owned by the Erie
Yeah.
County Land Bank.
Okay.
All right, so I'll kind of go through the housing plan, and if you have a question as we go through, certainly, we'll walk through it step by step. So on the first page, you have the 8 housing initiatives that we propose to implement within the Redevelopment Authority. The 3-year programmatic cost of $15,082,000. Now that is broken out over, like I said, the 8 housing initiatives. 1 being blight acquisition, 2 being new production, 3 rental investment, rehabilitation loan, 5 a minority contractor incubator, healthy homes grant, homeownership initiative grant, and a house and small business preservation grant. So as the numbers there, that breaks out to the $15 million that we propose for the plan. The 3-year outcomes, we 85 additional demolitions on top of what we have already proposed. The land bank is looking at acquiring and taking possession of 43 properties in 2022 through our cooperation with the Erie County Land Bank. So this would be an additional 85 over the 3-year period on top of what is already done out of the land bank. 180 homes remediated of lead-based paint and other hazards. That's certainly something that the Redevelopment Authority has done for the last 10 years. We're a 5-time grantee of the Department of Housing and Urban Development under their Office of Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes. So we've been awarded 5 times. We're in our 5th grant currently for the next 3 years. 25% more race-owned properties, 60 to 70 vacant lots are put back into productive use and new development.
I just want to
Currently,
add, I'm sorry, Aaron, if
Yeah.
I could, I glossed over that in my blight report. The Redevelopment Authority currently has about 100 vacant lots in their inventory that they cannot sell or unload, and that's through their blight remediation work in the past. Only about 20% of the
That's
properties,
All of Erie County, Kathy?
all of the city of Erie.
On the city.
Yeah. So of the properties that they do take through different, usually eminent domain, but it can be other ways, they're only able to move about 20% of those lots into the hands of private owners, such as adjacent property owners. The rest stay with them and create the long-term maintenance costs that are a drag on the Redevelopment Authority's work. So I apologize. Sorry, Aaron.
no, absolutely.
Kathy, thank you for saying that. So you have 100 vacant lots in the city of Erie that are just sitting. I was talking to someone the other day, and they were wondering, you know, how that can be maybe public. So if they were interested in buying it or investing in it, they would know about it.
All the lots owned by the Redevelopment Authority are listed on our website, and you know, lot proposal forms are on there as well. So any lot that is owned by the Redevelopment Authority is on the Redevelopment Authority website, like I said, at redeveloperie.org. And then the lots owned by the Erie Land Bank are listed on the Erie Land Bank website, erielandbank.org. So all those lots are available for sale. There is several under the authority's ownership that have some issues that we're working through getting resolved from back many years ago. But they would be available if somebody was interested. Would move a priority on that and resolve those issues faster than, you know, other ones.
And Aaron, you might want to mention that, you know, I know that the Redevelopment Authority and the Land Bank, there have been discussions about how to better market that. You've had some really good creative ideas from various board members. So I know that you've taken that to heart and are working to make sure that people know about that.
That's it. Yeah, we're certainly.
And you're also measuring to see what works. Is my understanding. Does it work to put signs out there to let people know when something is for sale? So
Yeah, that's it. You know, we're looking at every avenue we can to make sure that people know when the lots are available, you know, and who owns them. So, you know, as we move forward, we're continuously trying to improve to make sure that the public is as aware as possible to their availability and how they can go about acquiring those lots.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's see. 84 rental properties are improved from poor to good condition in the city of Erie. The greatest at some points. The city of Erie has an estimated over 8,600 pre-1940 rental houses, which makes it a high-risk jurisdiction under the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is also another way that we are eligible to apply for our grant and become a grantee, is because of our high risk of that pre-1940 rental housing within the city. So 84 of those would be improved. 104 owner-occupied homes are brought up to code through a low-interest loan program. 18 small minority-owned contractors are provided support to help carry out much-needed rehab work within the city. Currently, the Redevelopment Authority has 6 active lead abatement contractors to perform lead abatement activities within the city. We certainly know that we would need to improve that. We need a larger amount of contractors now. You know, we stretch our contractor pool to the limit every day to meet our benchmarks and continue to provide the services to the city of Erie. So we will work to grow that contractor pool to better assist in a timely manner the residents. 84 families become new homeowners, and professional staff is added to RACE, of course, to administer the programs. So on the second page, as Kathy said, there's some breakdowns of basically the data of the qualified census tracts. Kind of goes through, you know, what is in a qualified census tract. 11,000 parcels in the qualified census tract, 28,000 total in the city. Blighted 124 properties in the qualified census tracts, 146 in the city. So there's just some breakout information based upon the quality census tracts, you know, and where the data shows that the need is within those areas.
Yeah, I'll just real quick to help explain this, because we work with it all the time, so it seems very evident. What blight means is they've officially been declared blighted, but they're just sitting there. They're still owned by whoever owns them at the time. So they're waiting for the Redevelopment Authority to be in a position where they can take them. The ERA, which should be RACE, that's the 124 lots that properties they currently own. Rental, so you can see there's 65% of all the properties in the qualified census tract are rental, so you have a higher number of rentals versus owner occupied. 31 lots, 31 properties are owned by the city land bank. And then I was looking at a number of parks for other initiatives. all the neighborhood organizations that we know that exist in the qualified census tracts. That makes sense because they're in highest need. And then we have most of our watch groups are in there. Sorry, I just wanted to kind of give the background because it's not very self-explanatory.
All right, so if there are no questions there, I'll move on to the programs on page 3. With program 1, increased blight removal and property disposition. As Kathy had alluded to in her presentation, that there are plenty of blighted properties. We work every day to increase the blighted property list and identify those properties so that if the means are there, we can acquire those properties and assist those neighborhoods with the elimination of that blighted property. So over the next 3 years, we would anticipate the acquisition and removal of 85 properties to increase the benefit to the neighborhood and ultimately raise the property values and eliminate those properties from the neighborhood. A new housing production program. This would be utilized to assemble our land and move those properties into potential development of new properties. So the redevelopment authority, like we had said, has 100 vacant lots scattered throughout the city. We have a large concentration in an area in Central City based mainly off of an old development that just never quite got completed. So we have, I believe it's around 18 properties in that area that joined in 4 to 5 group parcels that would be prime for development, along with some other properties scattered throughout the city that would be for our new housing production proposal. Program 3, a rental investment program, would be to drive investment and improvement into rental housing while also providing some loans to contractors to either rehabilitate or improve any units less than 4. We wouldn't be looking at anything more than 4. That's more of a commercial investment. We're looking at more of those smaller rentals, the duplexes, the threeplexes in the city of Erie in the qualified census tracts. Program 4 would be a homeowner rehabilitation loan program. That would be to rehabilitate 102 owner-occupied homes over the next 3 years. This would be to provide rehabilitation assistance through a loan and potentially through a grant for occupants who don't quite qualify for other assistance under the programs. Program 5, like I said, is the small and minority qualified contractor incubator. We would look to build our capacity by 18 contractors, working with other agencies to develop and identify contractors, provide them the resources and the funding needed to bid on public projects such as this. So, as small contractors, we found that our programs fit best with small contractors trying to get off their feet. We've certainly, over the last 10 years, taken contractors from a one-man operation up to the point where they no longer need our programs and they move on. That's a success for the Redevelopment Authority, but it helps create some good sustaining jobs within the city. 6 would be a lead hazard control and healthy homes program to continue to address the lead-based paint hazards and the healthy homes issues that exist within the city of Erie. Many homeowners within the city of Erie, they defer maintenance to their properties. If you drive around, you can simply look at the roof, look at the siding, look at the windows. They're just not investing in their property, and it's not necessarily because, they don't want to. They just can't. So this program would go to fill that void and help those homeowners provide that and stop deferring the maintenance to their properties. If anybody who's ever done work, owned a home knows that the envelope of your property is the most important. If the roof fails, your house is going to fail. Water gets into their property, it's never good. So that's what we would look to do with that program. Program 7, the City of Erie Home Ownership Initiative Incentive Program. More of a PM would be to cover the PMI for homeowners who are looking to purchase within the City of Erie. Which is other referred to as piggyback loans, to help eliminate that private mortgage insurance and help lower their payment on that, since private mortgage insurance can be costly. And then housing and preservation grants to provide grants to homeowners who don't qualify for our traditional financing or HUD programs to have renovations done on their properties. More of the income between 80 to 20 AMI. I went through those. If you guys have any questions on any particular ones, certainly, I'm here to answer those for you and provide any other information you
And
have.
Also, any of the panelists, go ahead, and if you have questions or want to make any comments, feel free to do so. You're all open as panelists and can speak freely. So it's a lot. I'll let you time to sort of digest some of the information. What we would like to do is we'd like to move from here and actually move into a request that City Council transfer these funds for this initiative to the City Redevelopment Authority. And we'd like to do that from the ARP allocation. The city or the Redevelopment Authority would then work with their neighborhood groups, the Erie Neighborhood Growth Partnership, to refine the programs and then get them propped up and moving as quickly as possible, because we don't really have time to waste on this. We've just haven't had the funding in place to do so. And it needs to be done fairly quickly, because our deadline is December 2024 to get this funding obligated. We had talked about, we'll certainly work with council on what you would like to see as far as reports, updates. If at any time, and this is the, sort of the beauty of working with an authority that's been created and managed by, really from the city, is that if at any time that we see a course correction, that there's a need, an additional need that hadn't been identified, we would come back to City Council and apprise you of that. Or if we believe that the funding is not going to be spent in the way that we had proposed, we would tell you early on, so it could be reallocated back into another program, either through the city or through the Redevelopment Authority. So you do have a clawback mechanism that would be part of the, what we talked to finance, and we believe it'd be through an intergovernmental agreement that would come along with the transfer request. So there's still a lot more to be penciled out on this, but we feel like these numbers are reasonable, realistic, and this would be a good direction for us to take. We do have, again, a number of advisors beyond the neighborhood groups and the board. We do have Brian, who's been really helping with this idea of where are our new production opportunities and helping us frame and look for how we can get new development and developers to come in and work on those lots that we really do need to accumulate in mass in a way that they can be more marketable than they are today. I do have, I'll be happy to pass this around. I did bring the Adopt-A-Lot program, which is all of the lots and where they are located under the Redevelopment Authority, so you can kind of see. They're open for, you can adopt them. A lot of people try to adopt them as a community garden, which more times than not is not successful. Or sometimes they adopt them for other means and measures. Sometimes they are successful, but for the most part, they just sit there vacant and need the grass cut and garbage taken off of them. So,
Kathy, how does the property owner find out if they're eligible for these funds? I've had a couple of situations where people have asked me to check into things for them, and then they called and said that they got an application that was thicker than the Bible. They had to have their employer fill out so many things, and they just said it's not worth it. And then somebody told me there's another program. There's so many programs out there, people don't know, and I'm talking about the hard-working people, the people who pay their bills and stretch their buck from paycheck to paycheck and keep on going and need help also.
yeah. So, Aaron, do you want to talk?
I mean, and certainly, the Redevelopment Authority office, takes phone calls every day from residents of the city to qualify them for any one of our programs. The application is about 6 pages. It's basically a lot of information on the household. Under HUD's requirements, we have to certify income to make sure that they meet the income requirements of 80% AMI. So there is we do need pay stubs and everything else, bank statements, things like that. I know some points it feels intrusive into the residents, but it's needed to qualify them income-wise. We certainly work with them. Our intake coordinator works with them hand in hand. We take a lot of the strain off of them. We'll contact their employer, get the form filled out. We'll reach out to their bank to get their bank form filled out. We'll call their homeowner's insurance company to get their declaration page. Whatever we can do to help to lower their workload to apply for the program, that's what we're there to
These
help
folks
them.
aren't trying to hide anything, they get confused and they get frightened.
Well, and that's it. I mean,
Understand.
sometimes it does. It gets overwhelming, and we found over the years that the more hand-holding we do and the more assistance we provide, the more success we have with getting applicants through the program.
Thank you.
Kathy, I don't know if it's a question or a suggestion. At some point, it might be helpful to have Deb Smith talk to us about the money that department is getting to deal with homelessness, and also to let people know where county ARP funding is going, because the county, deals a lot with human services. And we all just got the latest newsletter from the Housing Authority, which is preparing its 2022 plan. And I think that might be useful at some point, just to have somebody come in. I think Mel is still the liaison to the Housing Authority, but I think it would be really helpful for us to have an overall and kind of overarching view of housing, so that we understand what our responsibility is and where this program is going. But there are other programs that are out there to help. It doesn't have to be a study session. Maybe it's just a memo saying, did you know, boom, 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 this organization, this government agency is handling that. And I was gonna call on Mike and Steve. Mike, first of all, I wanna thank Mike and Aaron for listening to me for all these years, asking questions about what is the cost, and every time I ask Mike a question at blighted property, he immediately gets an answer, like the next day. But I was just wondering if off the top of your head, you could just talk about some of the weird situations where a house ends up being blighted. We think, what has to be an absentee landlord, and what I've said, what I've learned over the years is that, yes, that's part of it, or sometimes it, but there's also these homes where there's an heir who just doesn't take care of it, and the owners are dead, and there's a lot of bureaucracy or legal requirements where you're tracking down to find out who owns it. So I just wondered if you could just anecdotally, real short, just explain that there's probably not one size fits all story for blighted properties. At least that's been my experience, and you're the expert in that.
And Mike, could you come to the microphone? Mike, we need to mic the mic.
Okay.
Just so people at home can hear him.
Okay.
There you go. That green light's on, correct? Oh, never mind. Let's just say yes. Okay.
Well, like you said, there are a lot of different scenarios and ways where a property does become blighted. Probably the number one is a death. Someone's deceased, there's no heir, or there is an heir and they just don't want anything to do with the property. The kids don't want it, it's too expensive to maintain it, so they walk away from it. Another instance, a lot out-of-town owners, they will buy properties off the tax sale without even seeing them, and they'll buy them in bunches, and they'll pick out the ones that they want to put money into, and then the other ones just sit by the wayside and end up in my lap. And it's very hard for us to pursue out-of-town owners because judges don't extradite for things like that. So there are a lot of different scenarios, or a property will catch on fire, somebody will set it on fire, and that homeowner doesn't have insurance. So they will just end up abandoning it and leaving in it, or they end up in a home and just don't have the means to take care of the properties. Like you said, there's a lot of different scenarios that take place.
Yeah, thanks. And Steve, I just wasn't sure about the area that Kathy was talking about where there isn't a neighborhood organization. So geographically, where is that? And would there be a neighborhood organization coming on board, or is that would really be talking about capacity building? So this is in your lap, but I wasn't quite sure where that is.
My area is from the Bayfront Highway to Zimmerman Avenue up to Davidson East.
Oh.
In that area, there's only two neighborhood watch. That's the Grassroots, which is run by Gary Horton, and the Hess Avenue, East Avenue, which is run by Father Jerry. There is one, the Sisters of Mercy, they do try to help the neighborhoods. In the past 5 years, we've given out 50 grants to homeowners to do facade, windows, roofs, siding, that sort of stuff. I'm always having people asking me, you know, if I send them a letter of violation, I don't have the money, how am I gonna fix this, you know? And I try to send them to Erin, sometimes Erin can help them, other times they don't qualify. We need some money to help the people to be able to rehab these houses, to keep them from going to blight. I've got a gentleman that I cited, and he came into court, and he never responded to anything I did. I sent him 6 quality life tickets. I cited him on all 6 tickets. Now it goes from $2,500 to a $300 fine on each ticket. He came in front of the judge. He's a disabled elderly man with an $832 a month income. That's all he makes. The judge and I have been trying to figure out for months how we can help this gentleman out. They need the help. They need this funding to help.
So Liz, the answer to your question, is there any other group that's being propped up? And the answer is not necessarily, but the housing response, would that now be in the redevelopment authority's hands? Now you're giving them the
Right.
funding that, to deploy in areas like what Steve works in. And so we wanted to make that connection. I think as neighborhood group, and I think Father Gary's group is fantastic, and, but they don't necessarily have the capacity to run a housing program, a loan program. The House of Mercy does a good job when they have grants, and I think their capacity has waned recently, but they.
It has, right.
And as new people leave, or as people leave, then the capacity to run programs diminishes or eliminates. It's very much with Serve Erie that's going under through a transformation now. They weren't able to manage a grant that they received from Keystones, and it turned it over to the redevelopment authority to be able to manage within their service area. So it makes sense again.
I think it might be, I'm sorry, one more question, sort of, or I'm calling on people, and I don't know if Rose and Heather wanted to chime in. I'm thinking of a conversation I had with Rose a while ago, probably about 2 years ago. You know, Rose used to be at the SSJ Neighborhood Network, and then, you know, Heather's there now. And Rose, I remember you told me that how important it was to get the some type of sustainable housing program going, because
This isn't it.
you can't just live on grants. And so I don't want to pick on you, but I didn't know if you wanted to chime in a little bit about that, because now you're bringing your expertise to Redevelopment Authority, and Heather, we've had those same discussions. You know, standing out there, looking at the houses that SSJs have been able to rehab, but the need is so great. So I just thought it'd be good to hear from these 2 women because of their expertise in being on the ground too. And I think maybe letting City Council know that this plan is something that has that kind of a support from those who've been out there in the trenches. So anyhow, Rose or Heather or both of you, I didn't know if either one of you wanted to add something to our, what we need to know to act.
Just be sure, there you go.
Yeah, I'm actually probably just gonna hand off to Heather, but I will say, just up front that the Sisters of St. Joseph, when they created the Neighborhood Network, understood that there was going to be need for sustainability as one of the reasons they created the Genesis program, and others, that had a level of some form of sustainability in the Genesis program. And Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a long time. That is actually a program where tenants pay rent to the Sisters of St. Joseph Network while they work on skills to become homeowners. And so it's a very good example of a sustainable model because you're getting rent. Now, it is not market rent, it is reduced rent, but it is sustaining the income of a home. And then you're not throwing somebody who's not ready for homeownership into homeownership. It's a program that is actually teaching them along the way the skills they need to become homeowners. So that's one example of a program that the Sisters of St. Joseph had in place that was about sustainability. So pretty much, Heather can attest to this, anything we did, we tried to create some kind of sustainability model to it. From the community gardens and selling the produce at farmers markets, with the kids who were growing the produce, everything had a name in that. So, Heather, do you want to speak maybe more to that? I don't want to mute myself. It was nice seeing you, Heather.
Yeah, I think I would like to say sort of as an umbrella statement that when this plan first was distributed to the neighborhood groups and to the neighborhood growth partnership, it was very clear that a lot of thought went into it. And it was very well informed from the months and years of meetings that we've had discussing the problems that are there with housing, and this fills some of the gaps that are there. It's a huge undertaking, but we need to start somewhere, and this is a perfect start. Forwarding what Rose was talking about with the Genesis program, with those homeowners, if they buy within our neighborhoods, then we actually, as they're renting from us, are saving money and putting it in escrow as a gift to them at closing if they purchase a home within our neighborhoods. The problem we found was that a first-time home buyer looking for a home that they could afford, that didn't require immediately a new roof and electrical upgrade and a new heating plant and all new plumbing, they're just kind of unicorns. Those homes don't exist. And so then we started getting grant money to acquire and renovate single-family homes so that we had one for them to buy. But, we're talking about putting $80,000 into a house that we can only turn around and sell for $65,000, and that's not a business model any developer is going to take on. So the programs that Kathy and Aaron have put together here really help with that, bridge some of those gaps in funding that's required to address the needs in the neighborhoods.
And Heather, one other thing, can she still hear me? One other thing Heather had mentioned is that we also
I can't hear you.
To that microphone, maybe a little closer.
Okay, one other thing that Heather had mentioned at the work session that the Redevelopment Authority had with the Neighborhood Growth Partnership is that we have to remember renters, and that not everybody wants to become a homeowner or would be in a position. So I'm just kind of parroting what Heather had said. So I think that this program covers those concerns too. Am I right about that, Heather? Is that okay to put words in your mouth, kind of? But you can do it better than I can.
Yeah, there's a lot written in here for homeowners, and there is some written in here for rental property owners who own 4 or a few units. And there, from the numbers in the Blight Report that Kathy provided, there are a large percentage of those poor, the property condition buildings are rental properties, and they're full of families that do not want to own a home. They really don't. That's not their dream. So that's what Liz is referring to. I had said that we needed to make sure that we don't forget the renters as well, and make sure that we provide some incentives for landlords to maintain and upgrade their properties too.
Totally agree.
I want to thank Steve and Mike for all your professionalism that you have given me in the last 4 years, and always following through on things. And I think it's great that you go. I know I've seen Steve at the neighborhood watch meeting, so I think that's really important and means a lot to the neighboring people.
Yeah. Yeah, Kathy, I have a question for you, Aaron. For our comprehensive plan, how is that being applied here? Because I know there's all kinds of judgments being made to how to apply the money. There's different areas of the city. I know you have the data now that kind of backs up these decisions. But I know in the comprehensive plan, in a way, it was kind of right-sizing the city in a certain way. And also, there was a focus on looking at those fringe areas in between the areas that are in higher need, instead of just focusing on the money there, and the areas that are like transition areas. So I'm just wondering how those two be implied. I'm sure you're looking at that as a backup decision for everything. I'm just wondering how you apply that, because there's just a lot of decisions to make. I'm just asking.
Well, the qualified census tracts gives us a lot of latitude and cross boundaries. So we have the more challenged neighborhoods were included in the qualified census tracts. So this funding will go into investments into those areas, as well as the transitional areas. So like where Steve works, that's considered a transitional area, and also in some of the areas that were considered more on the healthy side. Qualified census tracts, that is our target area, and that's a very large swath of the community, as you can see in the table. So that's really, it is going to help address that. We're also looking at proactive code enforcement in the areas that are the healthier neighborhoods as a way to address issues of housing markets instability. Because of our property condition survey work, we're able to identify, Caddo Morgantown is probably one of the best examples, although it's not the frontier, but it is an area that is fairly stable, but showing early signs of some disinvestment. We were able to identify properties that were considered unsound, but almost 40% of those properties had no code violations over the past 5 years attached to them. That doesn't mean that code enforcement was asleep at the wheel. What it means is that there was no one calling about those properties, and therefore they weren't in the system. They need to be in the system. They need to be addressed. I don't know why people aren't calling about them. That is a policy issue or something that I wanted to go down that rabbit hole to figure out why those properties weren't being told about. No one was concerned enough to pick up a phone and call an enforcement officer in Wausau. But that's the situation in which we can use these property condition survey to address proactive code enforcement in a different way than I think we've been able to do in the past. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Another, if I could just finish up a couple of questions I had here. I think that a lot of people always discuss or say that, including myself, I'd rather see rehabilitation than demolition, but I know demolition, of course, is needed in many of these cases when a house is falling down and taking down a neighborhood. But I think the issue is where are the people to make the investments to receive these loans and fix up the homes? Because we don't have flood people come into the city. We would love to see a flood people come into the city, but there's that question of who's going to make the investments for the rehab portion. Because I would love to see more rehab, less blight removal, but I think we need to respond to what's out there. It's kind of just a general statement. I'm not sure if I'm looking for an answer there, but I'm just saying how do you get the people to invest? We have this loan program and we have this help. How do you? The question is, how many people are out there that's going to be able to take advantage of that?
You also have down payment assistance and P&I assistance, so it's all working together. So the rehab can go along with purchase of the property. The redevelopment authority, much like the Genesis program that Heather and Rose identified, the redevelopment authority can also be the conduit to purchase or to acquire property that is still salvageable, use funding to rehab it, and then turn that over for someone to own. So they're perfectly capable, and we actually discussed that. I'm putting words into Aaron's mouth, and I apologize, that they're able to do that as well, and would look to do that as part of this program. One of the nice things that Brian, who's being very quiet tonight on our call, that's fine. He's really helping us think about what are the larger opportunities for new housing production. We also work closely with HANDS, not only with Chuck's vast knowledge of redevelopment opportunities, but also Matt Good, looking at the smaller 2, 3, 4 lots that are adjacent to each other. How can we bring in some funding and identify those for a new funding allows the redevelopment authority to work in. And
Yeah,
be
you're just
partnered.
creating the buckets and then it'll be, you know, the strategy is how to get it out there and there's many routes.
These will all be layered, and all this can be layered. You can use multiple programs for one
Yeah.
home. So lead and housing can be, or healthy homes can be used to fix up a property as well. Sorry, Brian, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that, Kathy, that there's an opportunity for leveraging, and I think, and I do applaud Kathy and the mayor and the team and the city council for taking a look at this opportunity, because all of the same resources at the state level and the federal level are still coming to those entities, including my prior organization, PHFA. So you'll have ability to tap into the low-income housing tax credits, the FAIR program, which is grant money, to pull together proposals as for submission to PHFA, earmarking some of the money that you're going to do for these programs will strengthen that application for other funds to come in. And that's going to bring developers in. As people start to fix up their properties, you'll see a good bit of investors and interest in home ownership coming to the table. Again, you'll be able to bring lenders to the table who will be able to provide money. And with regards to down payment closing cost assistance, those funds can actually be stacked. We've seen like Federal Home Loan Bank money, county money, and city money all coming in to push that loan to value level below the 80%, so it doesn't kick into the PMI and things like that. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity for leveraging these dollars. And what you have here is a plan that should go very far, because you're actually ahead of a lot of cities who are grappling with these issues. And a lot of the groundwork has already been done with the team in identifying properties. As you pull these properties together, you'll be able to offer incentives to developers who then will seek, for instance, the federal low-income housing tax credits to bring the large piece of capitals. For those that are in that 4-unit range, they'll be able to access FAIR, and in addition to some money at Department of Community and Economic Development also. So there's a big leveraging component that will be factored into it once you get these programs up and ready and submit to some of these other agencies. But I wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Well, I guess it's a question for race, but also for the mayor, because some of these categories look like duplications or replications of services the city already has. And so the question is, you had opportunity to bring a one-shop stop in-house. One, why we didn't do that, and two, with the given problems that we did have with our in-house programs, this is for race, how are we going to get around some of those barriers, such as income, disposable income? If you're loaning people money, they have to have money to pay it back. These are all challenges going through the Economic Development Office, and prior to the current leadership, problems that race had delivering these initiatives.
Well, I guess I'll answer your first question. As far as the Redevelopment Authority and our housing services, we've provided housing services as far as inspection, lead testing, and management of construction projects for the city of Erie for as long as my time at the authority and beyond that is. The city of Erie still relies on us for our housing services as far as the home program goes. They took back the home program in 2018 due to administrative funding. The Redevelopment Authority was unable to perform the services for that because we didn't get paid unless we completed a project. If anybody's aware of home funding, it's extremely restrictive. It is hard to spend. So we still, to this day, provide the home services for that program. We do, like I said, the inspections, the lead testing, and all that. So the Redevelopment Authority is that arm of the city. That is what we do. That is what we succeed at, and that is what we've become very successful at.
Correct. And so, but I also see that this is I have to use my calculator, but if your budget was $1,000, was $1 million, and now it's 15 times that, so, I guess the question would be, so how many new employees will you be hiring in order to facilitate?
These programs?
Yes.
Well, currently, every year, the authority administers roughly $2 million a year in rehabilitation funding with our current staff of 5 employees. Of course, there is the need with additional programming. We will need an additional inspector. We will need additional intake specialists to manage the amount of applications. You know, that's initially that goes. As far as the blighted properties go, that is already part of the plan, is to bring on somebody to manage the blighted property part of the position. Right now, the authority staff of 5 employees is stretched to the limit. You know, we work as efficiently and productively as we can with the staff that we have, because our funding is strictly grant administered at this point.
Well, I know you would need, so I just wanted, so you'll be anticipating 3 new bodies?
That would be the initial thought at this point, yes, sir.
At a minimum.
Yeah, at a minimum, I mean, just for the rehab side of it, I mean.
For the rehab, you're not talking, even the loans, the loan applications and the loan processing.
Right, yeah, you know, we're still in the initial, you know, we're meeting with Chris Groner to go through the revolving loan program, you know, since he is well versed in the commercial side of the revolving loan program. He's provided a great deal of insight and information as far as what we can do and how we can structure a revolving loan program that fits the residential side. It's not something that there is a model for. It's something we've got to build and build from the ground up and continuously improve as we move the program forward.
So there's good news and bad news about the home rehab program. I think it's great. Some of you may or may not be aware of it, but I floated an idea to the administration a while ago, but I am completely against loaning this money to the homeowners. I want to challenge you to find a way of granting this $3 million to the citizens. And so one of the things I did was, in my plan, I wanted to give what they say loop homeowners, which are long-time owner occupied properties, opportunity to have grants to fix up their house in a targeted area. Because we're all talking about doing the same thing, but we're putting more barriers there, and we found out already historically these barriers don't work. So if you lived in your house for more than 7 years, I think that's a lot of these people in their heyday who are aging in place and whatever, they could left the city at one point, and because they stayed, I think that we have this funding and they should be rewarded, as you know, they're now, a lot of our cities retired, a lot of our cities are on fixed incomes, and I think that I want to challenge you to rework this into grants, because the guy who has $800 can't pay back a loan, which I know he may fit into one of the other categories, but in theory, you know, they can't pay back loan. People who are first-time homeowners, while they may be PMI, you know, and we're loaning against the PMI, that's not the best we can do. It's just not. It's like, let's make sure, you know, the money hits the target and that the target is running. Because, you know, now if you're first-time homeowner, now you got your mortgage and now you got another bill. We can do better. This money was in the spirit of the ARP funding. It's supposed to uplift those who were most affected by the COVID. And I think that nothing against your organization, but you know, it was not intended to put organizations and organizational funding back on the map. It just wasn't. And I'm not saying that we don't have money other places or other ways of doing this, but I think, you know, parts of this, you know, aren't, you know, I just can't sit with it. You know, that we you know, so, because, if I can I have 2 more minutes? So, because, you know, so I just want us to do a better job. Let's be a better steward, you know, and, you know, and if you did a full analysis that, you know, that if you, first you get 2.1 for administration, and then because we seeded you money to loan, so that $3 million, you know, comes back to you. So that's also an administrative fee. So, we just have to keep our numbers real. It's not to put you, I want you to succeed, but, you know, but we have to be careful that the money that we're getting has to hit the target of the people that it was supposed to hit. Thanks.
Brian, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, and I just wanted to comment. I hear what you're saying, Councilman, and I just wanted to throw out suggestions as you go forward. There have been cities where we call it a groan. It goes on the property as a loan, but it provides a restriction so that there's no flipping from that particular homeowner. It can amortize over a 5-year, over a 7-year period so that they stay in their home. So there's options that could be considered as you go forward that would allow that homeowner to do what they need to be done, but no payment would be needed if it was designed for revitalizing a neighborhood where the incomes could not support the payment, the repayment of the loan, because you don't want to push folks into foreclosure to maintain the home. So there's some options to do that could be reviewed and addressed as you go forward.
And thank you, Brian. And just to reiterate, we have discussed those kinds of programs, and we'll look at those forgivable loan type of initiatives for qualifying populations. I'd also like to point out, Councilman Keys, that most of this funding is going out in grants and direct assistance for properties. This needs to be sustainable beyond December 2024. So we've added a revolving loan fund mechanism because, as you can see by the Blight Report, it's not gonna be fixed by December 2024. We've got a long road ahead of us. We're trying to shorten that time. So we want to make sure that this funding comes back into the Redevelopment Authority, not to fill their coffers, but to actually, so it can be re-loaned back out into the community for the next wave of people who need this assistance. And it can be leveraged additionally beyond December 2024. So we didn't think 20% of the funding would have been, it's much like what's happening with the County Redevelopment Authority. Those loan funds will revolve back because we know that Quincy and EMI and Subiaco Park is a drop in the bucket to the needs of our brownfields and our commercial revitalization efforts. And we have to have funding that will sustain our needs beyond the time frame in which it needs to be spent.
So I understand you sit on the board of race, but myself as a councilman, all of our authorities work together, but I have to put the people first and the people before organizations. And I believe that, you know, the new leadership of the race will be able to do a good job and be able to make themselves sustainable. But we have to be careful how we do it. That's all.
I can't wait until the blighted vacant properties or that have houses get torn down. That is a huge problem in the city of Erie because teenagers, homeless, people who have addiction problems, they go into these homes and they are unsafe there, and that's how fires happen and whatnot. You know, people freeze to death sometime in them. There's these homes that are really causing problems to the people who live around them, and they need to be taken down ASAP. Thank you.
Anything else before we go to the order?
So just,
Questions?
I just want, so will we have this on our, not tomorrow's meeting, but the next agenda? Is that the plan, do you think?
That is the plan.
Okay.
We would have something for you to look at in the end of October, your second meeting. So we would come in for you then. And we appreciate everyone's time. I know my guys were very courteous and stayed late, and so I appreciate your time and coming in and speaking. If at any time you want just another debrief on code enforcement and rail, I plan on having that on your agenda soon.
Okay.
Everyone on the call, thank you so much for everyone's attendance tonight. It was a great conversation.
Yes, it was.
I feel renewed that we finally have a shot at doing something that we've been seeing as a problem just in my short tenure with the city. And I appreciate the efforts of Aaron at the Redevelopment Authority and the board taking on this initiative and going at it with really gusto and vigor, and the neighborhood groups who have supported our work. And hopefully we'll see the benefit of a program like this. I was texting a little bit with the mayor because he was asking about leveraging, and I appreciate Brian's comments on leveraging the funding in addition to the funding that the Redevelopment Authority has. They will be able to use this funding to go after additional grants through Keystone, through FAIR, to encourage other developers, and that's really where the leveraging comes in, is we'll get other developers looking at the city wanting to build housing, and then investment from people who see that others around them are investing in their properties because they have the means now. So that's where we see the double down of this investment that you're hopefully going to support at your next council meeting.
Kathy, the one thing I'd like to see in more detail before that vote is our 3-year program. You know, they're saying 2 million for this, 3 million for that. Could I have more in-depth what each one of, you went over those programs quickly.
Per unit cost.
Yeah, but I'd like to know more about the programs and eligibility and things like that. Maybe that's too much to know, but you either get dazzled by brilliance or baffled by BS. And there's so much of it, we got a lot of brilliance here, and I'm proud of what the job
we
you
can
folks are
certainly work
doing.
on some
But,
little bit more detail.
yeah, there's questions that we have that I can't answer from that, and you did a good job of a capsule of it. But I wouldn't want to try to help somebody when they ask me a question about it, and I guess that's where I'm coming from. But I thank you very much for all the hard work, folks.
Yes, no,
Oh, wait, there's a step, hold on, I want to make sure I'm getting all the questions. Oh, thanks, Mayor. It's just to me, he understands now.
He gave you a thumbs up.
Sorry. It's way too many things for me to do, so appreciate your patience.
No.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
See you in the morning.